All right, what's going on, guys? I'm back. We're going to take a first look at this Week 7 in the NFL. It's already Week 7. I honestly hate how fast the NFL season moves. I love it when it gets here, and then it just seems like that first half of the season flies by, and you just start to actually, love that you're in the NFL season. You're like, okay, we have 8 more weeks left at least, and then that's going to fly by. But let's talk about Week 7. I'm going to recap really quick what happened in Week 6 for me. My cash game lineup, I ended up winning 59% of the bets. That's not great. I'd like to do better, but that's obviously turns a profit, right? So I turned a profit this past week, so I'll take it. I'll take anywhere I can get. I had Jameis Winston. I played the chalk with Jameis. Everybody played him. He ended up getting 35 after a shaky first half with some turnovers. He came back for us. I played Julio, another big chalk piece. Those were guys that I just, as the week went on, I didn't have Jameis or Julio in my first look lineup, but as I analyzed the matchup more and even just thought about the highest total of the week, obviously, I put them in there for me. I wanted to play CMC, Christian McCaffrey. I played him everywhere. If he could have had that touchdown with Cam Newton at the end of the game, it would have really helped me clean out a lot of lineups. I was looking. I played about 50 of my lineups, and I probably won like 29, 30 of them, or head-to-heads, I mean, and 50-50s, and I lost by like 1 to 3 in like 5 or 6 of them. So if I just could have got something here and there, it would have helped a lot. But I really cashed out. I played the Ravens defense in a good amount of them. One cash game lineup I played on Draftkings. FanDuel, I just played a couple of tournaments. I didn't play any head-to-heads there this week. I just had all my energy in Draftkings. I liked the pricing was tighter on both, and I just like the PPR aspect of Draftkings. So I won 59% of my cash game lineups. I'm going to put out something, an article on my blog. I'll link it up down in the description about my cash game lineup and how I really just analyzed each one of my decisions, where I really wanted to go with some of the money but couldn't get there because of maybe injury or just it was too expensive. But we're going to look right now at Week 7 this week. I'm going to be putting out the Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football showdowns right after this. So if you're watching this one first and you haven't checked that out, I'll link it up here. But let's check it out. This is my first look looking at this Week 7 slate. So we're going to get into it. A lot of close games this past week, though. Tons of close games coming down to the wire. Last night, I should talk about last night, right? Sunday Night Football, Chiefs and Patriots was hyped up in a 43-48, 83-point game. If you told me the over-under was going to be 70 in that game, I still would have taken probably the under, because it's just like, what games are going to go that high? How can you set it like that? That game you knew was going to go over the 59-point over. You just had to have that feeling with both those offenses. And the Patriots couldn't control Patty Mahomes. They had him in the first quarter, about maybe the first half, and then they just couldn't control him. Tyreek freaked it. The guy's crazy. But let's look at this. So, Jared Goff, most expensive QB, 6,600. That's about where the range has been, and it's Jared Goff this week. So last week, Jared Goff was at 6K. Let's look at what he's doing. Last week, he was at 6K. And he was definitely very interesting. In my first look, I thought about playing him. I didn't play him too much. I played him in maybe 1 or 2 tournament lineups. He didn't do great. They just couldn't get in the end zone, and Todd Gurley's just vulturing every single thing on the ground for that team. Todd Gurley had 2 more rushing touchdowns, over 200 rushing yards on the day. And he's just, you have to consider Todd Gurley in that offense. Yeah, he's going to catch a lot of balls, and he might catch some touchdowns, but when they get in the red zone, they lean heavily on Gurley. So it's kind of scary for Jared Goff and those receivers. They can score outside between the 20s, but once they get in those 20s in the red zone, it's really tough for Goff to score. So now let's look here. Cousins against the Jets. This is the second week in a row. Cousins is the number 2 quarterback. And again, last week he had a decent game. Nothing crazy, though. Didn't hit that 300 yards. He actually ran one in, so that's where you got some more value there if you played him. He was probably solo owned, maybe 1% owned this past week. Cousins, not somebody I'm looking at. Definitely Goff at 6,600 is interesting against San Fran. We're going to see what Aaron Rodgers can do to them tonight. But also not somebody that I'm really interested in at that price. I like to pay down. Wow. This is a surprise. Jameis Winston's all the way up to number 3 this week. We must have some issues with QBs. I know that the Packers are going to be on a bye. We have a few teams on bye, the Packers being one of them, so Aaron Rodgers is not going to be out there. But Jameis Winston's number 3. Yeah, they're at home. They're up against a good Cleveland secondary that maybe they're not so good after they got ripped apart by the Chargers this past weekend at home. Jameis went off. Like I said, we played him last week. The 4 tutties right there. Got you a few extra yards on the ground to cancel out some of his turnovers, because he had a lot of turnovers. But that canceled out some of the turnover points. And the 4 touchdowns going for almost 400 yards, that just helps you out, gets you to that 35.9. They couldn't seal the deal, the Bucks, but he got us the points that we needed last week if you played him in cash or any tournament lineups as well. He was just cheap last week, and I mean, 6,300 is not expensive, but he doesn't have the matchup, and we're not trusting Jameis Winston if he doesn't really have the matchup and he's not cheap to pay up for him in cash. At least I'm not. Angelo continues to just throw the ball like wild. 43 is a low throwing game for him, and that's his average. He's continuing to play well, though. He got another 4 touchdowns there. 300-yard bonus again for us on DraftKings. Somebody that I'm definitely keeping an eye on at home against Buffalo. Buffalo, I think their defense is actually pretty good. I think it's actually a little better than pretty good right now. But if they're on their own, they're a little more susceptible. Brady at 6,100. That's pretty cheap against Chicago. I don't even want to touch that. I don't want to touch Chicago. Brady last night had a good game. Didn't get into the end zone too much, but he actually ran one in from 3 yards out. People were going crazy about it because he ran in 3 yards. I saw somebody say 40-plus, 41-year-old quarterback still doing this, legendary or something. Like, it's a 3-yard rush. Like, it's not that crazy. But, again, still playing at a high level. Carson Wentz has been solid. I mean, through his first 4 or 5 games this year is, 4 games because he was hurt. His first 4 games this year, they look better than his first 4 games last year. And he had a remarkable season before he got hurt last year. So Wentz is looking solid, 24-plus points, 3 straight weeks. He's going for 300 yards right around there, throwing multiple touchdowns in his past 3 weeks. He's looking really good. I like this $6,000 price, like I've mentioned in past videos. People think they're getting a discount if they go for somebody like Cam Newton at $5,900, which maybe they are at $5,900 now that we're seeing that for the first time. But they just think that that even number means that they're getting ripped off. Like when you see something in the store for $9.99, you know what I'm saying? So looking at Wentz here, that's definitely an option against Carolina. Their defense, I think, is overrated. They got an L this weekend in Washington, and they're home in Philadelphia. The Panthers' defense doesn't look as great on the road in their 2 losses so far. So Cam Newton in this next one at $5,900, flipping the switch, going on the road. Cam Newton's home and away splits, there's not really much there to look at. In his remarkable MVP-type season that he had a few years back, or his MVP season that he had a few years back, there was a little bit of a home-away split. He played better at home. But historically for Cam Newton, he doesn't really perform worse on the road than when he does at home. Like this past weekend, he did pretty good at 24 points, and at Atlanta, he had 31. Playing in domes is where he plays the best when you look at all of his, even if he's on the road or at home, when you look at all of his splits. But home and road, there's really no difference. I like him at $5,900. Again, he's getting you 4 points on the ground. He's canceling out any turnovers that he might get because of that. And it's just all upside from there, really, for Cam. So I like Cam Newton at $5,900. I like him a lot there. Whenever I play Cam, I like to play McCaffrey. They kind of link together. Baker Mayfield, so he had a terrible game, and he still got you 14 points. I mean, his team had a terrible game. He maybe didn't have so much. He had 2 interceptions, throwing for low yardages. He's finally kind of starting to unleash the ball a little bit more, and when he's doing that, he's getting a little reckless with it. Chargers defense has 3 great cornerbacks, 2 really good cornerbacks, and Desmond King and Casey Hayward on the outside. So definitely a big task for him, but he's going to be on the road now against the Tampa Bay Bucs' awful defense. So this is somewhere where I might want to go. The Bucs' awful defense, Baker Mayfield maybe attack them through cash. That's risky, but I think he has the weapons out there to do it. Stafford at Miami, don't really want to touch Stafford on the road at Miami, even though he continues to produce in yardage. Packers is a different story. They got up big. Let's look down here. Dak Prescott shocked everybody. He had one of the best performances of the week, and if you paired him with Cole Beasley, which was a low price, I put that in my values play. I didn't play any Cole Beasley because I didn't think the Jags were going to let Cole Beasley do anything, or Dak. And if you played him and Cole, you got 60 points just from those guys on a very low price stack. Beathard, we'll see what he does tonight. 4,800 for C.J. Beathard is cheap. Going up against the Rams, who have been very shaky in their pass defense. I mean, Case Keenum didn't tear them apart, but he had a decent game, getting a couple touchdowns. One to Manny Sanders late in that game. Beathard's not terrible. He could run the ball. He actually is pretty accurate throwing the ball, maybe not deep, but intermediate to running backs is what they're doing there. But let's just pick somebody here. I'm thinking between Cam and Baker. Baker because of Tampa Bay's awful secondary. Cam because of his price and his floor, or his ceiling that he can get you because of his floor through rushing. I'm going to go Cam just because the Eagles secondary isn't the greatest. Yes, they look good against the Giants, but that's Eli Manning and a bad offensive line. So we'll start this one off with Cam. If we're going to go Cam, we're most likely going to go McCaffrey right after that. So we have Christian McCaffrey's price this week at $7,700. We have Kamara back on the main slate and Gurley. Gurley's down from $10K, where he produced fine at $10K at 40 points last week. Played some Gurley. I played him in a cash lineup on FanDuel and like a family league. Placed 4 out of like 12, just missed it. Amari Cooper last week hurt me a lot. He came out of the game with a concussion. There's reports that said he was going to go back in, never went back in, and that definitely hurt. So if we're going to play Cam this week, I know Fun just had a touchdown this past week, and I'm kind of bouncing around, but Fun just had a touchdown this past week, but he's getting the volume, but he just seems like he can't ever get over 100 yards for some reason in that offense. The move to go would probably be definitely McCaffrey, because they just have great correlation there. But if we're looking Greg Olsen, his price is 4,400. It's going up against the Eagles. Their linebackers are pretty tough on tight ends. Olsen got right back to work. I think he played on 59 of 60 offensive snaps. He wasn't limited at all, getting the targets. I'm going to plug Olsen in just for now. We haven't even seen the other tight ends, but just to see what it looks like. Kamara with Mark Ingram back. Let's see where they have Mark Ingram priced real quick. All right, must be priced down here, low. 5,900, that's not bad. Ingram came back, he played well, he got the majority of the touches when Kamara, maybe they were resting him, maybe that's just the way it's going to be. That's the way it was last year. Ingram out-touched Kamara. Definitely don't want to stay away from Kamara, but not about it. Todd Gurley, we're going to put him right in. I want to play guys who are definitely going to get the work and definitely going to get red zone opportunities. That's Gurley. His price is obviously high, just under 10K this week. We're going to continue to kind of plug him in and see what we can do there. Zeke did well against the Jags last week. He got over that 100 yards. Only one catch, though, which is different. He's had multiple targets in every single game, 4 or more except this past one. But let's just see what we have here, if we can find any value. TJ Yeldon continues to be decent in his performances, 10 points. I mean, at 6,400, his price isn't changing much. Or he was at 7,500 last week. He was at 6,400. I guess he wasn't at 6,400. I'm thinking of somebody else. But he was at 7,500 last week. Price down this week a lot. We're going to see what happens. We'll monitor that at home. I like that a lot, but we'll see what happens with Fournette. Not sure if he's going to be playing this week. He was out this past weekend. So we got our stack going here with Cam and Olsen. Let's just plug in a defense quickly. This is just first look. I'm bouncing around. I'm not going to go kind of through it, I guess, this week. I just like to go cheap and see if there's any value here. So I like the Bills on the road against Indianapolis, maybe. Panthers against Carolina at home. I don't like that. Jets against Minnesota at home. That's a possibility. But Cousins is moving the ball a little bit too well for me. So let's go with, just for now, we'll just plug in the Bills. I played them a couple times. They've done decent. I played them the week that they got 12 points. Not going to look too much into it. 12, 14. All right, so they're doing decent. I think they're a decent defense. Like I said, they're definitely underpriced there. Colts, Andrew Luck throws a lot of turnovers, or he throws a lot of interceptions, turns the ball over, and they throw a lot, so there's a lot of value there. The Bills do get a lot of pressure up front. So we'll start with that, and now we have 5,500 remaining. So let's just look at this pricing. So James White, very high at 6,900, but I guess overall there's not a lot of high-priced guys then in this area. Anybody at even price range? Fournette's at 6K, the even price range. You can get leverage in tournaments. We're looking cash. We're looking opportunities. I don't want White at 6,900 for opportunities. McCaffrey this past weekend didn't get a lot of opportunities. I mean, he got 15 touches, 16 total opportunities with his targets, but he didn't get a lot of carries. They were trailing a lot in that game. He didn't touch the ball again until the second half through the air a lot, and they missed him on that touchdown. He would have been in the 20-point range again. Want to go McCaffrey if I'm going to go Newton, but if we have Olsen there, we don't really need to stack too much. You know, Zeke's going to get the touches, but we might not have enough to kind of get him in the lineup as well. Ingram want to stay away from McCoy. He's getting the touches out there, but it's just difficult for him. He's getting the touches both on the ground and in the air. Against Indianapolis, not too soft up front, but he'll definitely get more work, so we'll see what that one's all about. Come back to that possibly. Jordan Howard just been a duck out there. Sony Michel's getting all the work, and this is interesting. So we got another 100-yard game. He's almost had 3 in a row. Basically, pretty much has had 3 in a row. He's averaged that over his past 3 games. And he got in the end zone twice. They're giving him the red zone work. He's doing well, so we're gonna see this at 5,500. That's definitely very interesting. He's going up against the toughest matchup that he's had yet, but we'll monitor that because he's getting the work. Against Chicago, though, it's a little scary. Carlos Hyde continues to get work here. He's just very cheap now, 14 carries. That's pretty cheap at 4,700. You might take that. Let's see, did they give any work to Nick Chubb? I know they were trailing a lot in this game, and he still got 14 carries, so that's well. Nick Chubb only got 3 carries. I think Nick Chubb's a better back, but they're still feeding Hyde after paying him. So let's put Hyde in there just because he's getting good work. So 4,700. Now we're gonna have to find some value if we want to play Todd Gurley at wide receiver. Hopkins is priced down against Jacksonville. Hopkins is matchup proof basically. He had a tough matchup this weekend. He still got in the end zone against White. He's gonna have Ramsey this weekend, but last year he had no problem with Ramsey. He scored 2 in each of the meetings against the Jaguars. That's definitely something to look at, but again, we have to find some value first. Let's see if we can find anything in this under 4K range or 4K. Kiki's cheap, 4,300 against the Jags. He's going to be in the slot. That's possibly an opportunity. He's going to have less on him this week. I think Deshaun Watson was playing a little injured, but he's going to have less ownership on him this week. But if we're going cash, the targets came down a little bit. Will Fuller got some more action. But at 4,300, that's pretty cheap because we know the guy can score. Cole Beasley's now priced up $700 this week. I don't want to touch it against Washington, but again, if their passing game's back and they're going to run the option and have some work there, it's a possibility that this could work out. All right, yeah, so Cole Beasley, I don't really want to touch him right now. We'll see how he's doing going forward. We'll see if this option running game, like I was talking about, is actually going to be beneficial for them. Cam Meredith, you know what I want to see? I want to see where Traquan Smith is. Traquan Smith's at $3,700. He only had 3 targets last week in a game where they were throwing the ball a lot, so that's kind of worrisome, but he's the big play guy, right? So he's a big play guy. You don't really want this in cash, but in tournaments, if you're looking to play tournaments this week, $3,700, he's going to be a very favorable option here. Against Baltimore, who's got a great defense, but we know New Orleans also has a great offense. On the road could be a little scary, but again, for tournaments, it's definitely some value there. All right, so if we're going to be paying up at running back for Todd Gurley at $9,800, we're definitely going to have to fit some people in. So we're gonna see what we can do down here. We already got Carlos Hyde cheap at $4,700. We can get one cheap receiver down here. That could be very beneficial for us. Trying to look at guys who are just getting volume. Callaway, 10 targets again. He only caught 2 of them. He's just having trouble converting his targets into anything. Some of that is overthrows on Baker Mayfield's part. Some of it's just the guy's not running right routes right now. So stay away from him, although he's getting the work. But one of these weeks, it's going to hit all together for him. Higgins, if Higgins is back in, we could look there, of course. If Callaway's not producing, somebody's going to have to be producing. So we're pretty low down here now. Humphries, I played Humphries in a good amount, and he did good. 11.2 points. He had 82 yards. He got tackled at the 2-yard line last week. I played him in a few tournaments. I had him in my cash lineup for a while, but I took him out last second. He wouldn't have hurt me at all, though. He actually did just as good as Tevin Coleman, who was priced $2K plus more than him. But let's just find somebody that we can plug in here right now. I'm not seeing anybody below 4K. I'll plug Kiki in. I think Kiki's going to have lower ownership overall this week, and I think he's pretty safe coming down off of all the hype now. He only had a low-performing game for only 5 targets, 3 catches, 6.3 points. If you're going to get 4,300, you just want the guy to get you like 4 catches for 50 yards, and you're fine with that. Anything more, which I think he's very capable of, even against the Jags, who, I mean, Dallas just tore apart, so I'm not too worried about the Jags these days. Sure, they're at home, but we'll throw Kiki in there so now we can get our average up to 6,200. See what we're working with here in this mid-range. Josh Gordon at 5,600. He played 81% of the snaps this past week. This is actually very interesting to me. He's going up against Chicago, who has a great defense, but they're more so great up front because they're causing pressure. Patriots have a good offensive line. Josh Gordon can get free against anybody. He had 9 targets this past week, caught 5 of them for 42 yards, just missed a touchdown. He got open a couple of times in the end zone. He had 2 red zone targets, which is very interesting. I'm going to throw Josh Gordon in here at 5,600. That's definitely very cheap. And the Bears, like I said, they're not as good in their secondary as they are up front. If the Patriots can hold off that pass rush, I think Josh Gordon, who had 9 targets last week, can definitely build off that. The question was, he only played 18 snaps in each of the previous 2 games. Was he going to play snaps? If you played Showdown last night, you might have scared away like I did from those low snaps. He played 81% of the snaps. He might have led the team in targets. I'm not sure if that was Edelman, who also, we'll see where his price is at 6,600. Edelman only had 7 targets. Yeah, Gordon had 9 targets last night. So definitely somebody that I want to throw in here at his price of only 5,600. That's insanely cheap for a guy who has the potential, if he's getting targets too, who has the potential to be 100-yard receiving and a touchdown or 2 every single week, especially with those targets. So now we're at 6,500 and we have a wide receiver and a flex left. Ideally here, what I would like to do is be able to fit somebody like Zeke in my flex position. On the road against Washington's a little scary, but Zeke, again, just keeps getting fed. I mean, he's getting 25 touches every single week. He's literally the guy getting the most work in the entire league right now, outside of maybe Gurley. We already have him in our lineup. So I'm going to plug Zeke in there just to see what it looks like, see what the other running backs are. Like I said, James White, Yeldon, I don't want to touch. We don't know what Fournette's doing. That might be a possibility since he's at home, if he's going to be healthy against Houston. They have a good front, but not the greatest. McCaffrey, I'm going to stay away from even though we're playing Cam. This is probably the wrong time to do it. I've played McCaffrey probably each of the past 4 weeks. Last week was his down week. I feel like he's probably going to be coming out more, getting more work in between the tackles. It'll be a closer game, throwing the ball a lot. Philadelphia and the Eagles, that might be one of the highest totals of the week, a game where we're going to see a lot of action from a stack perspective, especially for tournaments. Like I said, I would love to play Kamara, but I just have to see more about what that's doing to pay up for 8,500 to see that split with Ingram. So we'll throw Zeke in there for now and see what we can get at 4,900 at wide receiver, that is. Marvin Jones against Miami, not something that I want to touch, not something that I'm against, but in cash, don't want to touch it. D.D. Westbrook against Houston, he's getting some work. I mean, he's getting decent targets there. He got another touchdown this past week late in the game, and basically garbage time that whole second half was. Chris Godwin, I believe, caught a touchdown this past week. Yes, he did. He had 9 targets. That's very good to see Chris Godwin getting back on the field, but they were throwing the whole game, right? They were behind the whole game. They're throwing in a high total game. Taylor Gabriel continues to produce. He had, wow, I didn't know that he had 110 yards. I knew he had 100 yards, but I didn't know it was on just 5 targets that he caught all of them. So that's something that's just unsustainable. He's catching all of his targets the past 2 games. But it's also good that they're looking his way, and he's making those big plays. He's a big play receiver. Not a guy I want to play in cash, though. There's really not nobody down in this area under 5K that I want to look at. If we were at 5K, Aguilar and Crabtree, I was calling Crabtree, played him in a lot of tournaments, played him in a couple of leagues, and I knew eventually he was going to break out getting all these targets. He didn't completely break out, but he had almost 100 yards and a touchdown. Over 20 points is good for where he was at 4,700 last week. But let's see. Rodgers isn't a bad option. Look, 10 targets. This is what I want to see right here. 10 targets, 3 weeks in a row. We got to monitor what T.Y. Hilton's doing. We'll plug Rodgers in right now. Hilton's status isn't going to be changed right now, but he didn't play this past game, and basically he's dealing with a hamstring injury. Hamstrings linger, and they're not something that you want to come back and tweak, because you can come back thinking you feel fine and tweak it very easily. Hamstrings are something that you want to be safe with. So plugging in Carlos Rodgers there, if he's going to be getting 10 targets a week, I'm not totally against it. So this is what we're doing if we're going to be doing a Cam and Greg Olsen stack, right? That's where we built this thing around. We're still getting Zeke and Gurley, which is great value. Who's playing, and this is another thing you should always look at, who's playing the 4 o'clock games this week? So the Rams and Dallas. So we could leave Zeke in there. Basically why I say that is late swap. Most of you might be familiar with this, some of you might not be, but late swap's basically just, if you have a guy in your flex who's playing at 4 and you're losing and you know that your opponent has that same player just because you've deconstructed his lineup, you can see how much you have to spend, or you think he might have him, then I could take out Zeke here in the late games, and I could go and I could plug somebody like a George Kittle in at tight end or something. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of money left over, but it gives you a chance to actually win. And it doesn't have to be Kittle. You have these 3, 4 o'clock games right here. It could be Michael Thomas. You can go ahead and plug Michael Thomas in right there just because you have a better opportunity with that. We're going to leave Zeke in there, though. I like what the Cowboys were doing this past week. We can take off these games and get Zeke back. Yeah. I like what the Cowboys were doing this past week. They were running read option. Dak finally got his career high in rushing, and he did it against a great defense, or recently great defense. It's still a good defense, not one of the best, though, that I think. Not the best this year, especially if you get torn up by the Cowboys. Cowboys at home, they perform at home well, and this was just a totally different outing by them. Yes, Cole Beasley finally got involved. The read option Dak was running is what you want to see. I like where they're going with that. That opens up a lot more on the ground for Zeke. Look, he had over 100 yards against a great rushing defense. If Dak is going to be an issue on the ground now going forward, and I think they should continue to do that, Zeke's just going to be cleaning house. He's been playing great this year, getting the most opportunities out of anybody. We want him. We want Gurley. And this is if we're going to be doing that Cam and that Olsen stack. So this is where I'm going first look. We didn't really look at tight end too much. If we wanted to come off of Cam and Olsen, say, and we wanted to go just for the sake of plugging people in right now. Wow, I didn't even go this far down, but Deshaun Jackson against Jacksonville is 5,500. I should have seen that right away. Let's just say we plug Deshaun Jackson in, and we're just going to be going Kiki as a stack with that. So now we're up to 5K. We could afford George Kittle. 4,200. David Njoku just keeps performing. I mean, 12 targets this past week. 4,200. He's less than. I think this is actually the way I might go more than the Greg Olsen way. Maybe not start. I know Watson against Jacksonville is scary, especially in Jacksonville, and they're going to be coming off a huge game. So there's going to be a lot of recency bias. They're going to be wanting to get well, and Deshaun Watson just played pretty bad. So it's not just a perfect storm at all. But let's just say you're going to play David Njoku because he's just been doing great. Baker Mayfield's literally forcing the ball to him with 12 targets. You can go a lot of different ways now with this lineup. You can come up to whoever you really want here. If you wanted to come up to Brady against Chicago, that's pretty rough. Don't think I want to do that. I want to be put in beneficial situations. If you want to play Baker, that's one of the guys I saw earlier. You want to pair him with Njoku, I'm fine with that. I don't know what Landry's priced at, but I don't even feel the need to really play him. 7,300, I don't really feel the need to play him. He's still getting the targets out there, but look at this, 2 receptions for 11 yards. I like Njoku. I think he's becoming the #1 receiver out there for Baker. Leaving this lineup in here, now you have an extra $500 to spend wherever you really want to spend it. I like keeping Josh Gordon in this lineup, maybe getting off of Rodgers here, so let's see what we can do. We can get up to that Michael Crabtree spot, which I liked a lot against a bad Baltimore defense at home. This is the exact lineup I'm going to do. I'm not going to enter it for $20 because I'm looking at the Millie Maker right now because it was like the first one open. But this lineup right here is something that I like a lot. Carlos Hyde, I'm not the fondest of, but I mean, if we're going to be trying to get work down low. That's another pair with Baker Mayfield in this game that could be high scoring between Cleveland and Tampa Bay. I'll take advantage of the bad Tampa Bay defense. The rush defense is a little better than the pass, obviously, with their safeties and corners being ranked 79th is like their best ranking right now. For their slot corner, everybody else is like 110 for Chris Connie. It's just bad. So I like this lineup. Maybe come off of Kiki. Not sure I'm gonna do it though. I like the potential that he's gonna get there, the amount of snaps that he's gonna get there. I think this is a good cash lineup just based on, we know Baker's gonna be slinging the ball, especially in Tampa Bay, probably gonna be high scoring. We know Gurley and Zeke are just gonna be force fed the ball. There's no just red zone work they're getting work in the passing game. There's just no even having to explain that. Hyde's getting good work. He got 14 carries in a game where they're being blown out the whole time, so I like that. Still getting the work fed to him. Josh Gordon, I love with Brady if he's getting targets in any format, cash or tournaments. Njoku's just getting fed targets. Crabtree's getting fed targets. We're basically looking for opportunities here, like I always say, just targets, and we're seeing tons of targets here for Crabtree. We're seeing tons of targets here for Njoku. This is what you want. This is going to turn into opportunities. Everybody knows Zeke's getting fed the ball. 20-plus carries, 3 straight weeks. He's getting work on the passing game. Todd Gurley, just tons of carries, 28 carries, tons of that. So we're getting all the work here. We already went over that. Kiki, I think he's just still going to be 5 targets. I think it's going to be his floor. Bills defense, I'm not really worried about defense right now. You can come up off that if you want to go down somewhere else, like at Crabtree. I like this lineup a lot right now. Something that I'm going to be considered playing during the week. But like last week, I totally missed and whiffed on the Julio. We didn't really look at the receivers high this week. I missed on Winston early on, and I ended up playing them. But like I said, I mean, Thielen, have to even mention that he's the most expensive receiver. He's still producing ridiculously. We love the opportunities there. In cash, he's probably the safest cash play, so maybe I'll try and factor him into the lineup next week. Other than that, at wide receiver, maybe Diggs for a little cheaper against a good matchup. But I'm not really worried about this too much. I like where I'm at right here. I like keeping the mid-range wide receivers and getting value at running back, at least at 2 positions, and I think we got it at 3. So I appreciate it. If you're watching this far, I'd really appreciate it if you can subscribe at this point, putting out this content, trying to get to like 25 likes on a video. That seems like such a small number if you watch other YouTubers. But for somebody just starting out with like 100 subscribers or trying to get to 100 subscribers, I'm at like 80 right now. If we can get to 100, that'd be awesome, guys. I'm going to keep putting this content out. I'll review that past week's lineup. If you're using these lineups or using some of the players or my first look or my values, let me know. Drop it in the comments. Let me know if it's working for you or if you have any questions about it. Let me know if you have like stardom, sit-em questions, anything like that. I'll answer them in a Q&A video once I have enough questions for each week. But I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to be coming out with those Thursday night showdown and the Monday night showdown slates. But for right now, take care, everybody. Enjoy the game tonight. Good luck this week. I'll be back. Peace.